You talk about the highest of highs and then the sort of mundanity of going through the drug testing process afterwards. What about the highest of highs followed by the lowest of lows? Because after that amazing victory and everything that came after it, that comes this injury, which I suppose for every athlete is just the ultimate nightmare, because an athletic career is not necessarily the longest. And so what does that feel like? What happened? How did it happen? And how did you sort of deal with that in the immediate aftermath?
Yeah, it was. I couldn't even tell you like where the kind of timeline begins with that, and a lot of it is the consequences of winning something like Worlds. It means that you have all these opportunities that you can take. You can do things you wouldn't do. You celebrate a little bit harder than you would have, and you don't think anything of it at the time. And then later on down the line, it kind of comes back to bite you. Which, if I was to say, that's probably how mine went.
Are you blaming it on the dance floor? Are you blaming it on the dance floor?
No, genuinely. I think, yeah, it's probably a bit too much holidaying, and yeah, it was the opportunity to go, and I travelled to different events and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So not even the dance floor, sadly, but I picked up a few little niggles in like November time, and then everything was kind of like getting back on track. And then in January, I went to a training camp in South Africa, and a big part of our training is the gym, and then a big part of my gym is plyometrics, so a lot of hopping and jumping. And I was doing an exercise I don't know, I must have done like hundreds of times in my career, but it's just literally like jumping over hurdles. And I was kind of warming up, and I didn't feel very coordinated. I'd done a big session that morning, I was a bit tired, and I tried to go over one, and I just panicked, and in the air I like bailed on it, and I just put all my weight on one foot, and then just completely rolled that foot and damaged the ligaments, pulled a tiny bit of like bone off, and then from there that was just the start of the cycle. I think most athletes have probably had a point in their career where you get stuck on a really bad like merry-go-round, where by coming off of one injury you haven't done enough to then get back into training safely, and then you pick up another injury. And if you'd have told me after winning Worlds you'll have a year that you're injured, doesn't go your way, I'd have taken it. But when you're in it at that time, you still think, oh, why me? Like, what have I done to deserve this? But I'm a big believer that if you have bad luck, which I've had a lot of the past year, then you're dealt good luck following that. And the way I kind of came through the other side, it was tough, like hitting the summer season, and I came very close to racing a lot of occasions. I had a wild card for Worlds, which meant I was guaranteed to be there, and to not be able to take that up was tough. But it's taught me a lot of lessons. I've shown that both physically and mentally to get back to the point I am at now, which is back on track, is like very, like, I'm proud of almost. And it's been one of the things I'm proudest of is how well I've been able to bounce back on like 3 or 4 occasions from numerous problems to be able to get back and kind of believe that I can still be at my best, which I'm hoping will be the case.
Yeah, it's interesting that, isn't it? Because also when somebody wins something mega, normally that's the start of a roll of a lot of winning and a lot of events, going the right way, because that winning mentality is set, and it's quite hard to break that in people once they start that roll going. And then yours is so cruelly cut short at that time. How hard has it been to sort of get back to that winning ways mentality and know that you're where you need to be mentally as well as physically, and trusting that the foot is going to hold as well?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that come with winning something like Worlds, and that's one of the cruelest bits. Is everyone says, "Oh, you like have so many things you can enjoy the next year." Like you get, not that it's why we do it or anything, but you get paid more to race. You get like the title and defending champion when you go into it, and it's always more cruel because Worlds are normally 2 years apart, and because of COVID, they were only back-to-back years. So I was world champion for a year, which no one would ever have any other year because it goes on for 2. I'm looking at it with silver linings. Like, I believe that if I can go into this year under the radar, because the sport moves on so quick, like you're forgotten about very quickly if you don't race. So I nearly raced, and because I didn't, everyone's like, oh, where is he? Like, what's he up to? And it's kind of like keeping that self-belief that you are where you need to be, you're doing what you need to be doing. And we're lucky that our training that we do each year is pretty comparable. So like you can always reflect back on the sessions you're doing this time of year compared to where you would be other years. And I know that I'm in the right place at the moment, which is the main thing. And it's just keeping very blinkered. It's not getting affected by what other people are doing. There's a lot of people in athletics at all points of the year are running really well, but knowing that when the time is right, you'll be running at your best, and that's the only thing that matters.
Yeah, I like what Brendan Foster said to you about not comparing one year with the next year, and sort of how poignant that is, especially when you've had a year to forget. And how important is it to do that?
It was probably the best bit of advice I received throughout the whole thing. Like, Brendan follows the sport closely, and I saw him at an event, and he was asking how stuff was, and I was telling him this is actually before I had another setback which put me out in the summer. But he was saying, like, don't like throw away the training diaries and don't compare, because there's the different pathways to each point. And I've realized that it's like I've got fitter than I ever have done by not running as much in the past year, which shows that you can get to the top in so many different ways. And I think you can become obsessed with it otherwise and get disheartened pretty quickly. You're always comparing to exactly what you were doing. And it's like, well, if that was the case, I'd have stopped the sport a long time ago, because my training doesn't suggest necessarily, like in previous years, that I was doing better, but I'd always come out and have a better result. And a lot of it is like the brain and the racing brain, like, becomes better and better, and that has no impact on how physically good you are. But I now get to the point where I know exactly how to race, how to get the best out of myself, so if I can be as close to my best as I possibly can. I feel like when I race, I have as much chance of not making mistakes as I ever have, which that's a big thing for me. It's just knowing that nothing's gone to waste. Like, I've put years and years of training back to back, and therefore if I'm not training as well as I necessarily would be, it doesn't matter, that it's still there somewhere.
I want to hear about the prep thing, but I really now want to hear about the racing brain. So take me through, what a great phrase, exactly what that means and exactly how you prep yourself for a race and how you run your best version of a race. Is there much visualization in that? Do you plan it in a particular way? How does that sort of manifest itself? Take me through that.
The way to kind of describe it for me now is I operate an autopilot a lot of the time, where you respond to stuff. Like, I think the 1500 meters, if people haven't watched it, it's like chess. A lot of it, it's run in so many different ways. It's about making moves at different points, and in a race you have one big move to make, and it's making that move which is best suited for you. And there's 11 other people trying to disrupt that and do their moves. So it's like a lot going on to think about, and it can become very overwhelming. And the best thing I've done is, over the years, like I said before, I've made mistakes, and every time I made a mistake, I've been like, well, I won't do that again. So therefore you get to the point where there aren't many mistakes to make. And if someone does something, so say, for example, someone goes hard from 800 meters to go, which is like doesn't happen often, but it might throw you off. It's like, I know now to stay calm, because that potentially will just ruin their race, but I'm not going to let it ruin mine. A lot of it is what you do in your warm-up. So in warm-up, we're physically like preparing to get our body ready and primed to run our best, but you have to think about the head as well. So for me, it's switching off from what I'm about to go and do and just staying as relaxed and calm as possible, because we don't need to get into that racing mindset until the gun goes, really. So say myself with Josh Kerr and my other teammates, like, we'll just chat and have a laugh in the warm-up area, and then when I get to warming up, I listen to music that's pretty chilled, nothing that's going to get me like slapping my thighs or making me too like worked up before I need to be. And then as a result, you can have a clear head and be kind of calm and rational when you make decisions. You can do them calmly so that you don't do anything stupid, which it's tough. Like, there's a lot of athletes even now, like at my level, where we go to the start line and we're within a second or two of each other PB wise. So what's going to make you stand out? It's what you do on that race. So it's being the best decision maker you can possibly be.
And what about adaptability? Because presumably you've got to respond to what's going on as well as run your own race. So how do you sort of have a game plan and then adapt it if you need to?
So the event I'm in has changed a lot over the years. So it used to be, which I would have loved, that I'm an 800, 1500 meter runner, so my speed is my biggest strength. But a guy called Jakob Ingebrigtsen has come in and changed that, where now we run nearly a PB every single round. So we run close to our max every time, which is not how I would like to run. So I have to adapt my whole training throughout a year to make sure that I'm ready to be able to do that, because we race at a champs 3 times within 4 days, and you need to, on that 4th day, be running the quickest you ever have, which is tough. Like, that's not how I would have been ready in the past, whereas now I know that that's the case. So it's just about covering all bases. So within a training week, it's like if there's something that you feel as though you're missing from your racing, it's like, are you covering that at every point in the year to make sure that when you need it the most, it's there, because you can't make the changes on a day. So the adaptability comes not just from changing what you're doing on a race day or like, having a different decision. It comes from the previous year, and all the hard work we do in winter means that we cover every single potential race strategy from everybody else. And you can manipulate it into your own. Like the one thing that I'm always confident in is that if I can, I'll put the race in my own hands and I'll do something to try and win it myself, because you don't want to be a passenger and let other people make their moves and kind of have it their way. You'd rather be the one to put your move on somebody else and make them panic. So that's always nice to reassure yourself that you can make that happen.
How competitive and strong is that 1,500 meters at the minute? You mentioned Jakob there, but also you've got Josh in the mix too. And what the heck is going on with Scottish athletics that you're so blimmin' good at running? What's going on there? It's incredible. Laura Moore as well.
Yeah, it's cool. It's actually, if you look at the population of Scotland, it's the same as like London. It's crazy that we have so many of us that like they're not only making teams but winning medals from it as well. And like within Scotland, it's, I would say, if I was to, there's a lot of people that have different opinions on this, but I think that being brought up there meant that I had a bit more of a sheltered development than I would have done in England. So it was so much more competitive in England to make teams, to do well. I think if I'd have been trying to race there, I'd have been a lot more disheartened with how I was doing and potentially not wanting to do it, like being put off the sport a lot more. Whereas for me, the little bits of success I could have in Scotland in a bit more of a shallow pool meant that I still loved doing it and I was still buzzing. And I think you kind of learned how to race a bit more because we were competing against less people, so we could try and win races. We were winning a lot more, and we learned how to do that, which is something that you can't really teach at an older age. You learn that when you're a kid. So I definitely think that is like a big reason why everything's coming through now, and it's a bit of a snowball. You see someone that's growing up in your same club, in your same like schools events and the same stadiums, and it's like, well, they're doing this, like, why can't I do it? Like, I've come through exactly the same pathway. And I hope that means within Scotland, it's going to keep rolling over for a few more generations, because you hope that a kid who's come to Edinburgh has seen myself in jobs should be like, well, I do 1,500, I'm coached by the same coaches and I'm that age, like, why can't I go and have the same sort of success?
We can't get enough of a bit of a rivalry in sport. So do you two get on well behind the scenes and have good banter, and then the minute the race, it's switch on and go, and it's everyone each for their own? Or how do you manage that friendship stroke rivalry, because you guys have sort of come up together?
So I'm not really one to have enemies. So I generally get on with most people, and like the same with Josh. It's like we a few years apart, but we've grown up from the same club, like going to the same events, being on the same relay teams. We both had very different kind of like progressions through the sport. Like, he went to the US through NCAAs, I stayed in the UK to uni. But we still get on every time we see each other, and there's a lot of people in my event within Britain that I would call my friends, and I think there's no reason why you can't be friends off the track, but then when the gun goes, you still want to beat each other. Like, I think everyone's got that, and it's a pretty healthy experience to have, because it means that I'm going to these meets, I'm going to camps, I'm having a good time, I'm having a laugh with people that I genuinely want to be with. But then as soon as we get on the track and race, like, you do not want to lose to them. So it's quite a good thing for me when I look back on the sport. I have a lot of happy moments from like spending time with the people I race against, and other people might be different. They might have to dislike the people they're racing against for them to feel like they need that kind of boost and that motivation to actually go out and beat them. Whereas I've got enough fuel from trying to do what I want to do on the track and being competitive that I feel as though that's enough for me. Like, if I can be as friendly as possible with people and make it a more pleasant experience, then I enjoy that.
Well, that makes you a very nice person. As you well know, I don't have to remind you, but for everybody's purpose and just so that we're clear about it, the Olympics obviously only happening every 4 years. By the time LA happens, you're going to be 34. So is this all or nothing?
I know.
Is this literally, is it all on the line for Paris? Like, we've got to go for gold this time because we don't know what's happening next time.
Yeah, I hope so. It's, for me, I can't see myself going to another Olympic Games. I'm not the kind of person that like loves running. Like I do it because I enjoy what it brings me at the end, and that's winning races and having some success. So for me, if I'm not operating at my best, I don't think I will still be doing it. And 34 within our sport is getting on a bit, and I still feel like the old man in races, being 29 now. So I can't imagine 5 years time or 4 years time still going. So yeah, if I look at it like that, it is a lot on Paris. It's the one thing that is missing is I've had world gold, therefore the only other thing is Olympic gold, which this is like the stars aligning, I guess, with the timings of it. I feel as though I'm still running at my best and the Olympic Games is coming, which is the best possible scenario. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's just not for lack of trying is the main thing. It's that I'm going to do everything I possibly can to come home with Olympic gold in Paris. But I know that there's a lot of other people thinking the same, and it kind of makes it exciting that there's so many people in my event that could potentially be crowned as Olympic champion. But there's a lot that can happen between now and then. It's just making sure you turn up to the final in Paris in the best possible shape with the best possible head on your shoulders.
Jake, how on earth does somebody who doesn't really love running end up doing what you do to the level that you're doing it?
No, I don't know. I guess it's a bit like I read on Georgie Ainslie's book and stuff and how much he disliked tennis, but I don't enjoy the act of just going for a run. Like for me, there's a lot, especially when I retire, there'll be a lot of other ways I can keep fit that are a bit funner for me. So it'd be like playing, I don't know, like I'd love to play like paddle tennis, for example, or like playing football, playing golf. For me, it's just all about the competitive instinct inside me. It's not, I love racing. I love racing, and the only way I can be good at racing is by going for runs, which I think at some point maybe I'll change my mindset and be able to go for a run in bushy and like look at the nature and enjoy being there. But for us, we're doing it tired a lot of the time. Our body hurts. We're like slugging through it, like clocking the miles off, and I can't wait to be back at my house. Like once I get going.
Beware what you wish for. Honestly, when I watched Ben, so 2012 was his last Olympic Games. 2016, he was hell to live with because just watching the games from afar and not being in the mix was like, you know, you might as well have cut his right arm off. He literally was like, oh my God, you know, in utter sort of, what's the word, despair about the whole thing, and barely could watch a frame. So I guess it's when it's on your own terms, that's fine, right? You know, you've got a route to going and doing different things.
Yeah. Well, so I had it in the summer. I made the decision to go and do media stuff at Worlds because I couldn't race there. I was like, I had a lot of friends and family that were still going, and I was like, I'd rather be there working in the event than sat at home watching. And when I got there, I was like, what am I doing to myself here? It's like torture, where like I went through the media accreditation bit, and they were just like, I was just with like camera crew and other journalists and stuff, and I was just like, this feels like I'm done here. And it was like trying to tell people that I'm normally on the other side. Like I swear, no, I'm not normally this side. And it just made me feel like it was too soon. So that gave me a lot of kind of like reignition to know that my place in the sport is still as an athlete, and you're a long time retired, like you're saying, and I think it'll be tough watching the people I was racing against still going when I at some point finish. So if I can have that at a point where I feel like it's ready, that'll be great. But at the moment, there's definitely a lot of unfinished business still.
You are not done yet. You are not done yet. So what I want to ask you as we sort of round off our chat is for a performance tip. So clearly it's not going running because you don't really like that very much. But if you had to tell, people, this is something that I do every day, something that you might also benefit from that could improve your daily performance, what do you think you'd pick? What would be your thing?
So one of the things that probably benefits me the most, it's a bit obscure, I guess, but from having some separation from what I do. So I have to make sure that during the day I'm meeting up with somebody or speaking to somebody that isn't from my sport or necessarily involved in my sport or cares about it. It's important for me to have a switch off because what I do can be all consuming. You can think about it the whole time. You can have people speaking about it the whole time. So I have to designate some time every day to make sure that I can just be a normal person and not just be the athlete that I am for the rest of the day.
Maybe consider this podcast part of that performance daily tip cycle, whatever it might be.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Jake, thanks so much. It's been such a pleasure having you on, and we'll be gunning for you 100% to win in Paris. Thank you.
Thank you very much.